All right. So I'm here today with Jon Meadows, who is a headshot photographer and facial expression coach
That's right.
and the owner of High End Headshots.
That's right.
Welcome, Jon.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So we're here in quick shout out. We're here in DC in DuPont Circle in Heartcast Media Studios. Definitely check them out if you're in the area. I invited Jon here today because, well, we met. Did we first meet at 1 Million Cups?
I think so, yeah.
So we met at 1 Million Cups, which is a startup event in DC where different startups come, and it's every 2 weeks, and there's a startup that'll come, and the founder will just describe in a few minutes their business and what they're having trouble with, or some challenge that they need the audience's assistance with. And I've been going to that regularly while I've been in DC. And Jon, I think you're there just about every 2 weeks also.
Yes.
And so we always have these interesting conversations. And so I just wanted to do one of these together. But specifically, we've talked a bit about your business, and there's just so much that I like about it conceptually that I really just wanted to dig in.
Sure. Yeah, it was. I got to present at 1 Million Cups, and it was very helpful. Neville's the MVP of helpful comments, by the way. Always has good ideas.
Thank you. But before we get there, you didn't start your career as a headshot photographer, is that right?
No, this is my really third career plan of my life. I burned through the first two in about 8 years.
Okay.
And never really thought about photography as something to pursue for money until 2015 or so.
That's pretty recently.
Yep.
So what was it when you were a kid? Was it fireman or?
I had nothing.
Nothing.
My dad was very concerned. I was in 10th grade, and I had some experience landscaping. I liked the work and being able to see the difference of before and after, beautifying places, getting to plan what goes where, and doing the work in a day or 2 days, and having the place look a lot better after we were done. And
that's interesting in hindsight.
Yes. I got into rating in 11th grade, and what I liked about that was starting with nothing and it being up to me what I wrote, and I liked editing and refining arguments and just making it flow better. So it was like it's a creative kind of thing as I look back.
And was it fiction, nonfiction? Did you want to be the next great novelist, or?
It was nonfiction. It was developing an argument or explaining something and making a point about a book we were reading. I was homeschooled through 10th grade.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And I went into a classical school in 11th grade.
That seems like a late time to kind of make that switch.
It was a church in the area's school that was only for members of that church.
Okay.
And then it opened up when I was going into 11th, and my sister was going into 9th. And so...
Small class size then?
Small school. It was 12 people in the school.
Oh, wow.
From 6th to 12th grade.
I think I had 12 people in a single group project in my school. I think we were 2,000 students in just my high school, like just for 4 years, 2,000 kids.
Yeah.
You had 12.
Yeah, it's good. I did graduate second in my class, though. There were only 2 people, but...
It's quite an accomplishment. You don't have to tell people the second part,
Well,
though.
that's true. I should leave that out. That would be better.
Yeah.
But I went from homeschooling. Basically, I didn't hate school. I didn't love school. I did it. We didn't really have summer breaks because we just got behind with, like, one of the advantages of homeschooling is flexibility. And we spent time together, and we took vacations to see my grandparents in West Virginia when we wanted to. And it just kind of, there wasn't a lot of discipline in terms of, like, we need to get this done by June 1st or whatever.
Interesting.
So I kind of did school year round. And I wasn't challenged by it. I got like B's, and without like putting in a ton of effort.
Mom.
And
was mom your teacher?
For yeah, basically. My dad took over like on math stuff in like 10th grade or 9th grade. because it was a little past what Mom could handle.
Sure.
And so when I went into the classical school, the first book I read was the Aeneid.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like nothing I had read before. I think the last book I read in 10th grade was Billy and the Raccoons. It was like 20 pages.
Wow.
And then I went into the Aeneid, and because the classes were mostly taught by one guy who's actually just won like professor of King's College in New York City for this year. Amazing guy, changed my life. So because he was teaching the younger grades, like the junior high grades, the first day, they just told us to read for 45 minutes, and we would talk about it the next day. So wow. I read, I think it was 7 pages, like a couple times, and I didn't know, like I was paying attention, but I didn't know what I had read. So I went from that, and so that makes homeschooling sound like it wasn't up to snuff. Like I didn't learn how to read good books in homeschooling. But within a month or two, like I was on track, and I was putting in a lot more effort than in homeschooling, and I was, making A minuses or B pluses there too. But I enjoyed it, and that's when I started writing and getting into forming an argument, which led me into philosophy, a philosophy major in undergrad.
Okay, so now you're in university. Where'd you go to school?
University of New Hampshire.
Okay, so close to home?
Yep, I commuted from home. I saved a ton of money by doing the half-an-hour drive.
And you started as a freshman as a philosophy major?
I think I started as a humanities major. That was my plan, but then I realized a little bit in that I really wanted to do philosophy, and that was more challenging for the writing and more up my alley. Like it was about arguments instead of having arguments about other things.
If you had asked me at that age of like 17, 18, what would be my least likely major? Like I would have chosen, you name it, like anything over philosophy would have been to me like the epitome of the one thing that's like never going to get you a job and is really boring and I want nothing to do with. But now as a working adult, like when I'm not working, if I'm reading something, chances are like it's either philosophy or I'm reading it with like a philosophical bent as I'm like kind of going through it. And I'm just like, oh, this is so interesting. It's like a giant parallel for this other. But you started that way.
I did. I enjoyed the philosophy, but I did view it as a training ground for what I wanted to do after, which was law school. So after 11th grade, like you remember, I was boring. Like I didn't have career goals. I didn't know what I was going to do for work. I also didn't really have many hobbies. I played some table tennis. I was into table tennis. I was into tennis. I played with my now brother-in-law. Didn't like really practice. Wasn't on a team. Just played with him.
Casual tennis.
I played chess throughout my childhood, but did not really study that much. I played my dad and others who were good, and I just had a talent for it. So I didn't invest in that. Mm-hmm. You think like all guys who are 12 to 15 like video games. I played a little video game. I just wasn't into it. Like when we went to West Virginia, like I mentioned, my sister would do crosswords, color, whatever, stitch, crochet. And I would just try to stay awake the whole time because my dad was staying awake the whole time, like just to get through the drive. It's like 15 hours. So I would try to do that too.
Yeah.
And I'd just look out the window for 15 hours and content. But that's what I tell people.
Building your personal philosophies.
I was boring. And then I'd get there and tell my grandparents, like, I was awake the whole time. And they're like, okay. So where was I going with that? So after 11th grade, over the summer, I decided I wanted to read Plato's Republic.
Nice.
And my parents were very surprised. And at the end of the summer, I guess, is when it was, I decided that I wanted to go to law school after college, do a legal career for 20 years, run for political office, and then do that probably for the rest of my life.
Wow. So it was just mapped out like that in your head. You had not a 5-year plan, but like a 50-ish year plan?
50-year plan, wow. Yeah.
And that stemmed from what you had read in those last couple of years of high school?
It stemmed from being challenged by school and liking the challenge and liking creating and tearing down arguments, which my sister was really into politics.
Interesting.
And she abandoned that before she got started, really. But she was, I came from a political family. We talked about politics. And, politics is important. And I thought it would be a good thing to spend my life doing that, at least part of it.
Civil service and like shaping your country.
Yeah.
So you started studying philosophy, but specifically with an idea to getting into law, and law was your stepping stone into politics?
Yes.
So how did that go?
So I did philosophy and humanities, a double major, and a minor in criminology and criminal justice. I could not get into the law schools that I wanted to, that I would feel would be surely give me the job that I needed to pay off the law school, because I was a good student, but I was not going to get a full scholarship to anywhere I wanted to go, basically. So I I applied to Pepperdine in Malibu for a Master's of Public Policy, and I applied to Oxford for a Master's in Criminology and Criminal Justice. And I was sitting on the Pacific Ocean looking out like, wow, this is where I'm going to be, because I got accepted there. I got my T-shirt, and then I checked my phone, and I got an email from Oxford. So I was like, should I return my shirt or should I keep my shirt? It was the same amount per year, but it was half of the length. So
Interesting.
I chose to go to Oxford for half.
The Oxford.
Yeah,
Right.
in England. I'd already been over there for a study abroad, so it was
Oh.
kind of familiar territory. I went to London.
So you finished your bachelor's, you'd applied for these master's programs after not getting into the law schools that you wanted to.
Yeah.
But you did get into Oxford.
Yeah, the Oxford degree was in the law department. It wasn't a law degree. I could not practice over there after that, but I thought that would be a great thing to have come from an Oxford law department and then apply to the top 15 schools. The top 15 schools did not think so. So I still couldn't get in. So I was like, okay, what I need...
So you actually went to Oxford, though?
Yeah, I did the 1-year program there.
Wow.
And then, so they didn't accept me after that.
Maybe
So
they just don't like you.
Probably.
It's starting to sound that way.
Yeah. So I was like, well, what I need is practical experience. So I started applying for paralegal jobs, and I worked on the Upper East Side of Manhattan for a high-profile criminal defense firm of 4 people. And I was a paralegal there for 6 months. And at about 4 or 5 months, I was ready to leave, and they were having me review paralegal resumes for the one paralegal position that they had.
Had you told them that you wanted to leave at that point?
No, it was mutual. I worked mostly for one of the lawyers there, and she was a great lawyer. She is a great lawyer, but not fun to work for.
Was it that particular environment, or was it the idea of being a paralegal just wasn't?
It was the environment.
So where did you go from there?
Well, at the same time, I was not enjoying the job and seeing the lives that these lawyers were leading in terms of work-life balance or lack of it.
Yeah.
I met my wife there in that 6-month period, and I didn't think I would be married probably until now, like 30, somewhere around there.
How old were you then?
I was 23.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of called into question, can I get married anytime soon and then go to law school with a wife? And law school is hard. So and then am I going to be doing this where I work all day, every day, and into the night and not see her?
So you got a taste, even without getting into law school and not being a lawyer, you got sort of a front seat view to what that actually looked like, not just the idea of being a lawyer, but like the day-to-day reality of what a successful lawyer's life looks like.
I also had someone who was helpful to me, a couple years older than I was, who was interested in law and decided not to go, and was talking to me about how there's a glut of law school graduates and there are not enough jobs. And so now even, it used to be if you did get into Harvard, you complete the degree and you get a big job and you pay it back, it's fine. And he, talking to other people he was friends with in law schools, like, that's not the case anymore. Now, if you go to Harvard, to be guaranteed something, you have to do really well there.
Wow.
And I was doing well at UNH. I did okay at Oxford, but I knew that I was not going to be one of the, top 10% of the students
in a Harvard law class.
At somewhere like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the top 10% of a Harvard law class are like future Supreme Court justices and like people of that kind of caliber.
Yeah, my ego's big, but not that big. So I decided, like, I had enough student loan debt, and I wasn't as enthused about it, and so I just skipped straight to politics. So I moved back home, which happens to be New Hampshire, which is a good place to move back home to if you want to get into politics.
That's right.
Yeah. And I hopped in a governor's race that I wanted to be a part of.
So you're 23, you're 3-ish years into the 50-year plan, and you've hit a couple
Half of it is done.
couple of roadblocks so far. Law school didn't work out. You might have met your wife at that point.
No.
In case you don't know that she's your wife yet.
Yeah, she wasn't my wife when I met her. Yeah.
It's usually how it works, at least in this part of the world. And the law kind of career thing is looking a little maybe not the right idea. So, but for you, law was it was a means to an end.
Yeah, I think I would have enjoyed law school, and I think I would be a good lawyer. But I didn't want to spend the next 20 years, not with my family.
But the part about being a lawyer, it sounds like, wasn't the actual dream. The dream was to be a politician. Lawyer was like how you...
I think it was a good way to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't the ultimate.
So goal. What was the ultimate in your mind? Like, if you visualized kind of what success looked like for you at that age, what was it?
In the end goal?
Yeah.
Probably a senator.
Senator.
Yeah.
It's so
there are
interesting.
too many House members. You have no weight.
Growing up in D.C., like, I've been surrounded by this my whole life, and it's funny, like, it never... president has, a certain cachet to it because it's this, like, singular executive.
Yeah.
But the idea of being, like, a senator just never even, like, registered for me as, like, a possibility. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So that was the dream. So you go back to New Hampshire. Why is New Hampshire a good place to start a career in politics?
New Hampshire is first in the nation. They vote first in the national elections. Everybody watches New Hampshire. People view it as a bellwether of what's going to happen to some degree. It has implications. I feel like it's similar. I remember on George Bush's campaign, Karl Rove was telling George Bush, like, we got it. And he's like, did we win? Which counties did we win? He's like, we lost this county, but only by this much, and we were supposed to lose by this much. So that means that you're going to win. So I think, it's just one of the states that are more important to political pundits. The joke is that people in New Hampshire you'll ask them who they're voting for president, and they're like, I'm not sure yet. I've only met this one 4 times, and I've only met this one 7 times. They come to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You can go to a rally. I did this, I think, with George Bush, and it was like 500 people in a field, and like he went around shaking hands and
Wow.
stuff. Like,
it's funny, again, growing up in DC, like, we're surrounded by all of this, but they're not generally part of our local community here. It usually is places that have those early primaries and elections where it's like you've got to go and kiss the babies and shake hands.
Unless you're on K Street.
Unless you're on K Street.
They
right?
visit
Then,
K Street.
Yeah, or you visit them with lots of gifts.
Yeah.
So you worked in, you said it was a governor's race?
Yeah.
And how did that, were you like an intern, or how do you work in a governor's race?
I started out as an intern, a field person, so I helped coordinate events and manage volunteers, put together a lot of yard signs, etc. So
Glamorous work.
Yeah, that's where it gets done, I guess. Yard signs are not as important as all the volunteers think, all the supporters, like, I need my yard sign so I can support you. Like, how about you give me $10 instead? That would be much more helpful.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things of signaling rather than actual effectiveness.
Yeah. So I did that, I think, from, when was it, May to August, and then they gave me a job. I'm trying to remember. I think I made $300 a week.
Good money.
For like 60 hours.
And so you've gone from Oxford to a New York law firm to yard signs for $300 a week,
Yeah.
but now you had an actual job.
I was getting 300 once I got the job.
Oh, that was the job pay. Before that, it was a volunteer
Intern
thing.
was not paid.
God.
Yeah.
Okay, so volunteer to $300 a week.
Yeah.
And so you were getting a taste of this political life firsthand, though, and was that still the dream at that point?
Yeah, it was. I liked it. I was engaged. I never was one to be obsessed about it. I worked with people who were studying and like researching, like who voted for what bill 12 years ago, and what does that mean for what we can say about our opponent who just said something positive about that person, or which districts we need to win and what happened over the last 3 election cycles, and whether we should focus our attention there or over there. I really don't know how much we lost by in all the campaigns I worked. I don't know the final total.
How much we lost by in all the campaigns?
They were like, we didn't win. I was like, very disappointed. But I was never like, well, which counties should we have? Like, I don't know. We lost. It's time to.
There may be
go
some
home.
correlation between those two pieces of the story.
Yeah.
So the election that you worked on, the campaign that you worked on, your candidate lost that election, but they still gave you a job.
They gave me a job before we lost.
Ah, okay. So that was still August, right?
We always have the October. I worked on one that was an end date in October, but it's always like you are working more and more hours until you lose, and then you'd have no job and it's over, and you're tired.
So the election happens, you lose.
Yeah.
And is that like when you're watching CNN or whatever, the results are coming in, and you're just like, oh,
We're always at the party.
Don't have a job.
All the campaigns I worked on had a watch party, a victory party they call them. Whether they don't know.
Right.
It's always a victory party, so you're watching the news, and there are people in the back room. I was never one of the people in the back room like crunching numbers to see, which speech you'll give or whatever. But you watch. In my case, you watch until you're disappointed.
And it's just like it's like watching your favorite sports team lose, I guess. Where it's kind of like, oh, they're going to come back in the second half. They're going to come back, and then it's just like fourth quarter or whatever, and like seconds are ticking away, and reality is setting in, and you're realizing that like this is it. We're not going to win. I
had one of the campaign sticks in my mind where one of the counties where we were stronger. I didn't know which counties we were stronger in. But one of the counties we were stronger in was coming back, and we were up like 60-40, and I was like, yes, it's looking good. And then it's just like flip-flops throughout the night, and just like, you're like.
And it's just understood on that night for all the people who are there watching, like, that's it, we're unemployed now.
Yeah, I can't remember whether maybe they paid us for another week or two, but it's,
effectively,
there's nothing else to do. You have to clean up the office, and
that's sad.
That's it. Yeah.
I can just imagine like emotionally kind of, because there's like you've been pouring your heart and soul into this
90
effort.
hours a week.
Yeah, 90 hours a week, God. And then not only does it not pay off like big picture for the candidate, for like the person that you wanted to win, but also now it's like you're out of a job.
Yeah. The three other campaigns I went on were national, and I wanted to follow my candidate and work on the Hill.
So you're in New Hampshire. You just lost. It's election night. How did you get from there to the next 3 campaigns?
I worked a job. Let's see. Let me get this right. I worked a sales job for 3 months. I was selling technical recruiting to people in D.C. from Nashua, New Hampshire.
But the political dream wasn't dead. So you lost, but you're still like, I still want to do this, the 70-year plan or 50-year plan or whatever.
I still want it in. Yeah.
And so you're applying for political jobs and just doing something else to make money.
Sure. They fired me.
The sales job.
Yeah, because I wasn't selling stuff. I mean, I was talking to people on the phone. Like, why are you in Nashua if you're focused on DC? I'm like,
it's around the corner. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's only several hours away. Then I got into, I went back to New Jersey. I was searching all over for jobs, and the only thing on the East Coast I could get, I'll get back to that, was repairing and installing lawn sprinkler systems. in Montville, New Jersey, which is actually where my girlfriend was.
Okay.
But I applied to Stop and Shop, and they had a part-time produce clerk position open.
For a guy with an Oxford degree.
Yeah. I was like, I needed money, so
Sure.
it's fine.
No shame.
So I went in for an interview. I met with one of the managers. It went well. You know, I'm competent. I will show up on time. I dressed up a little bit. I answered all her questions. And she's like, well, that was great. Thanks for coming in. I was like, great. When do I start? She's like, oh, no. You have to have another interview with the general manager to arrange fruit. So before that interview, I got the offer off of Craigslist for this sprinkler thing. So I did that for 3 months, and my now wife's mom is into politics. So she found out someone in New Jersey was running for Senate, and I got on his campaign. And that was the start to my communications career.
So you quit the sprinkler jobs.
Yes.
You're now on your second campaign, and you're living and working in New Jersey.
Yes.
Working for someone, and he was running for the
U.S. Senate.
For the U.S. Senate as a senator from New Jersey.
He was like, they paid me a salary. Like, it was not a ton of money, but it was enough. It was good. It was fine. I could live on it. Live carefully on it. So they needed a communications person to help out with the communications firm, which got me into press release writing and op-ed writing and kind of the political debate and Twitter debates and kind of arguing again, which is more what I wanted.
That was the part that you liked growing up, is kind of forming the arguments and then...
Yeah.
So now you've moved kind of fully away from the law side and more to the theoretical, philosophical side of the...
And it allowed me to be snarky, which I enjoy. So, right, I did that. It was a special election, so it was several months. We lost.
0 for 2?
We cleaned up the office. I headed home to New Hampshire, and I got a call on the way from a referral from someone from the New Hampshire campaign. And this person who was running for Senate in the next race wanted me to come be her communications director.
Oh, wow.
So I did that for a few months. That was not a main campaign of the cycle. It was someone who didn't have a lot of support from the parties.
So someone running as an independent?
No, but just it was a crowded field, and
gotcha.
She wasn't one of
She was an also ran, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I did that. It was okay. It was not a very well organized campaign. They didn't listen to me on some key things about like taking positions on major issues. So I got a call from the campaign manager from New Jersey to come to Louisiana and do a campaign there in communications. So it was my third communications campaign.
Wow.
I think it was my longest campaign, must have been. So I was there for 8 months. We lost.
0 for 3.
Yeah.
Did the second New Hampshire one actually lose an election while you were there, or that was...
I was gone before they lost.
You were gone before they lost, but you still, in some way, I hope, contributed.
I tried.
To the loss.
They didn't really listen to me. And I'm not like a great advisor, but it was like, I think you should make a statement about what everyone's talking about in this election and let people know where you stand. Oh, I'm not sure exactly what I want to say. Okay. Everyone's talking about this. Like, you have to get in the news.
You're invisible already.
So I was only there for a few months, and the Louisiana campaign was better.
But that lost as well. So now you're 0 for 4.
0 for 4.
At this point, have you looked backed out of politics, or does it go on?
I thought, well, now I've been on 4 campaigns. I can go work on the Hill without working for someone who wins. So I applied. I came here for 2 weeks, and I just tried to meet people. I went to like these lectures, briefings.
So you just moved to D.C. without having a job here?
I didn't move. I found friends of my brother-in-law, or I think to-be brother-in-law, who lived on the Hill.
Nice.
And I crashed on their couch for 2 periods of a week meeting. Like, my goal was like, go to this briefing and meet at least one person and just tell them I'm looking for work. Do you know about anything? And they were strategic meetings, obviously. People who would know people who would want to hire me, and I would
Would you
want
just
to work
like
for.
look them up on LinkedIn before you go, or how does
I
something
didn't know
like
who
that?
would be there for the most part. Like, the speakers,
Yeah.
but I was meeting people in the audience.
So you just show up
mostly.
and
Yeah, just try to say hello.
did that work?
It did. It's a connection from my wife's school, like childhood school, who worked on the Hill and connected me with her old chief of staff, and went in for an interview with a congressman and got the job.
I feel like there's a lesson there in terms of just one, having the chutzpah or whatever you want to call it, just to show up with no like invitation to be here, right? And just say, I'm going to do this, especially after losing 4 campaigns. I guess you knew your way around, but it wasn't like you were running on your record of.
I think I'd only been here once before, so.
And then a little bit of that kind of who you know, but it's not people in high places, right? It's that kind of like loose network of people that are, whatever, girlfriends, brothers, former classmates, uncles. It's those kinds of people, but it only works if you actually tell them, I'm doing this. This is what I'm looking for.
Sure.
Do you know anyone?
Yep. It was very, very much like I just tell people, like, I'm here. I heard that being here was very valuable because there are a lot of people around the country, probably especially young people, who want to get their first job on the Hill, but then they have to move and stuff. So I just said, like, I'm here.
It's like the presence equivalent of, what do they say, possession is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah.
Like being here is 9/10
Like,
of the.
I'm here. Like, I can start tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said that, like, I would have to move later, but I'm here.
Sure. Just showing up in an office is very different than sending a LinkedIn message or a spam email
They
or
have
whatever.
to answer the phone when you're right in front of them, shaking the hand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got in at the beginning of a 2-year term in the House with this congressman, and he lost re-election.
0 for 5?
The next time, 0 for 5.
And in this case, he had actually won prior to you.
He had won 3
joining.
times, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I said to you once before, if I ever run for office, I'm staying far away.
And we lost to this clown, really a strange guy who, like, would post pictures of him and Elf on the Shelf around the campaign trail.
Hey.
Very strange. Like,
It worked?
I don't know.
Not sure we should
guess
be
it
taking
worked.
advice.
Maybe that's what I'll do next campaign.
Yeah.
So yeah, from there, an organization, a nonprofit that was in the civic education space, not political space. It's not political, but it's involved with politics.
Yeah. That sounds like a bit of a euphemism.
They picked me up as their communications person. They also worked with a firm, but I was the only person in the office doing the communications. And it was really strange. It started off great in terms of feedback I was getting. I was learning about the organization still, but 3 weeks in, they were talking about promoting me, giving me an office, taking me out of the pit where all the desks were in the common space. And I was kind of surprised. They asked about, you're making more here than you were on the Hill, right? And I was like, it's about the same. And they're like, oh, well, we'll give you a 3-month review and we'll give you a raise. I'm like, okay, great. I
So far, so good?
I don't feel like I'm doing an awesome job. I'm trying. And then it switched, and I couldn't really tell you why. And then 15 months later, they fired me, and I went full-time as a headshot photographer.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because we've jumped around through homeschooling to school, to Oxford, to philosophy, a law career that didn't pan out, but you still got to politics where you wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And I think we've had about 10 different jobs along the way.
Yeah.
Tenacity is coming through. But politics didn't work out. So what was there, like a particular moment when you just decided that, like, this is not happening?
Yes. So about the same time I started at the nonprofit, I had probably a year since I bought a real camera and tried to start learning photography, where I found my mentor for headshots, Peter Hurley, out of New York City. He's considered the best headshot photographer in the world. And so I started the new job, and I started learning headshots, and it was, I got roped into my first headshot. I didn't want to shoot people. And I'm a facial expression coach. I came up with that term because That's, I think, the differentiator for me. A lot of people will just tell you to smile, which was what I was afraid of. I didn't want to just tell people to smile because that's weird and it doesn't work. I knew it didn't work even though I hadn't shot anyone. I was just like, if I just tell them like smile,
intuitively,
it's
you knew
not
that's
going.
just
That's going to feel weird
Yeah.
for both of us, and it's not going to work. So this Peter Hurley is known for drawing expressions out of people, and
Yeah.
he has amazing light. So he had everything. He had the knowledge to help me be great at that. And
was photography just something that you'd always wanted to do? Because it definitely seems like a departure from all the stuff that you studied and were doing before that.
it goes back to London, and I looked at the Facebook posts from then, just maybe a few months ago.
Yeah.
I remember someone telling me I thought I remembered someone told me I had a great eye for photography, that specific phrasing, and whether they did or not, that stuck with me. And I look back, and I think it must have been kind of my conclusion that I might have an eye for it based on my mom's comments on my London pictures. Just like, the way you're composing this is really cool. You should take pictures of more stuff.
It's funny, we make those comments to people, and they're not like throwaways, but you never think that like they're going to have that kind of impact.
She meant it, but yeah, it did. It stayed with me, and I was like, maybe I would like that. Maybe I would be good at that. So it was in 2014, in the last campaign actually, that I got the camera and started messing around with the exposure triangle, figuring out the very basics of like
Sure.
how to make a even technically sound picture.
Right.
I got roped in. My first job with photography was a headshot for $100, and the guy.
How would someone even know to hire you though?
I was trying to get some side money from shooting real estate.
Okay.
First, I shot bugs in Louisiana because they're amazing and like you've never seen before. And then I was like, okay, Katie's aunt was making significant money shooting real estate.
Yeah.
And real estate does not have expressions, and it's not awkward if you don't know your settings right then and there. You can figure it out.
Sure.
Nobody's there to see. And the realtor I was practicing with gives his clients a photo shoot. And the idea is that the new family in their new house, when it's set up, gets their picture taken in their new house.
I love it. Real estate is like so hard to distinguish. Like, what's the difference between any real estate agent? So
Yeah.
that there's just some, here's me on a calendar. I'm gonna throw in a photo shoot.
Yeah. But you could do whatever you want with the photo shoots. The first guy was like, I need headshots.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually went over into the Eisenhower Executive Office building, which has terrible lighting. It's all wood.
But it's
and
what you
like,
knew, right?
Tungsten lighting, and it's not very bright. And
Yeah.
so I brought my speed light, and the guy was okay with it. Like, he wasn't like, these are amazing, but he was like, thanks, this is good.
Yeah.
But I wasn't happy with it. So I looked for tutorials online, and I found Peter Hurley's. For some reason, I was off of work for 2 days, and Creative Live plays these tutorials,
Yep.
selected ones on certain days, and you can watch them for free while they're airing them again.
Creative Live is Chase Jarvis's business, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell
He's
you for sure.
another master photographer.
Yeah.
It's a cool model, right? It's free if you watch it the day they do it, and then
Right.
you pay to watch the recording of it later.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
It's
interesting.
fairly affordable. It's really a good resource. They do like business, photography. They cover like great stuff for creatives.
Yep.
And so I watched 2 days of Peter Hurley.
Yep.
It was probably like 6 hours plus of him talking about lighting and expression and all that, and it helped me. I was like, I like this guy's style. He's
Yeah.
a good teacher. It was helpful. So I wrote him a thank you note, and I included my email because I thought he might email me back, but he's not going to handwrite a letter and mail it back to my
Right.
return address.
How did you? So you watched? Because this is interesting. You just kind of mentioned this like it's a normal thing to do, but you watched a video online, effectively.
Yeah.
Like you
I did.
weren't invited to this. This was you just
searched it.
watched a video.
He came up.
He came up, and you liked it so much that you decided to write a thank you letter.
Yeah.
How did you even know where to send it?
Just Googled his studio. I just sent it right to his studio address.
You just Googled Peter Hurley and found him in New York and got an address and.
Yeah.
Right.
Handwritten notes are important.
I totally agree, but nobody does that,
Yeah.
especially in this digital
Yeah,
age.
for sure. So I got an email back from him, and I told my wife, I told my parents, like, Peter Hurley.
Peter Hurley wants to
emailed
talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he invited me to his coaching group.
Very cool.
So I joined. It was $20 a month.
That's affordable.
It was very affordable, and he was addressing what I was concerned about with photographing humans. He was well respected. He was a good teacher. And so I was like, where else can you get the leader in the industry to coach you for $20 a month in anything? So I'm like, right now I went to a conference with the Headshot crew, and I spent like $600 on one video of his and the membership. That's my photography education. It's probably around $2,500. And I'm doing it full time now. So it's a very good investment. Much better than Oxford or University of New Hampshire for me personally.
So you studied under Peter, and you're still working full time at this point, or had you already made the switch?
I was working full time as I was learning the headshots. Yep. I didn't go full time until I was fired.
So you were actually fired.
I was fired.
And that was like the kick in the ass to like, I'm going to do this headshot thing full time, or did you start applying for more political civics education jobs?
When was it? Sometime in 2015, there was a pivotal moment in politics where bills failed, and I knew that we in the political party I was working for didn't all agree on everything, but I thought we agreed on this one big thing. And it's actually the thing that the passage of the law got me into politics. And I thought we were working against this. Even the people in the party who wouldn't support my boss, wouldn't come to our state and rally for him. Yeah. I thought we all agreed on this thing. Oh. And it failed when we could have passed. Like the very thing that passed when it couldn't become law failed when it could become law. And there were people who voted yes on it when it couldn't become law, and voted no when it could become law.
So they were it was all for the sake of appearances.
I just threw up my hand. I was like, I thought this was the one thing that we could all agree on.
It's the oldest story, right? Mr. Bill goes to Washington. You show up and realize just how corrupt and...
It was maddening and just disheartening. Like,
yeah.
I worked on other issues. I care about other issues, but I thought that we would be able to do what we wanted if we had the numbers, and we didn't, because there were people that were just saying that they wanted something.
So you got disillusioned.
Yeah, I kind of threw in the towel. I think I was still working hard at my job. I think I was working as hard as I was before, but I was getting to that point where I was charging for headshots, and I could see a potential to do that full time sometime. Yeah. I like the creative side. I like the business side.
Sure.
I like working with individuals. I like the flexibility. We were having our daughter soon. Oh, wow. And I was like, my dad worked from home and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I was like, we could actually eventually both stay at home with the kid or kids.
So you had that model from the beginning. That's really interesting, because I feel like that's such like a kind of millennial modern, I'm this digital nomad, and I think about all this kind of stuff of like, oh, our generation is the freedom, but you actually saw that growing up. Like for you, normal was your parents are around. Like they work, but they're around.
Right. Yep.
So interesting.
So we both grew up with stay-at-home moms, so I wanted Katie to stay at home. She wanted to stay at home and be with our kid or kids. But I didn't really ever think that I would be able to just work from home and just make my own schedule. And
yeah.
So,
see, I'm obsessed with this idea of like escaping the default path and just kind of like breaking free from that 9-to-5 corporate, whatever you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And you spent years trying to do that, to break into that world. In politics and just having a corporate-y type job. And then after all that time, you're kind of like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And you were already doing headshots on the side. So you'd already sort of started launching this, but there's that like moment of sheer terror. I've heard it likened to like letting go of one trapeze and jumping onto the next one, where you can only go so far if it's just like a side thing.
Yeah.
And this is hard to explain for people who haven't done it before, because it just sort of seems like you can just have this like linear kind of two graphs that cross each other. But in my experience, you have to just like psychologically make the leap. And like, it's almost like your identity changes one day, where you meet someone at a cocktail party. Instead of saying, hey, I'm Jon Meadows, I work in this political campaign, it's like, hey, I'm Jon Meadows, the headshot photographer.
Yeah, I made the transition before I was fired to I was like, if I want people to book with me, I should not say that I'm in politics, but I also do headshots.
Right.
But there was the tension of like, well, what if someone says like,
if they find out?
can you do Wednesday at
Yeah.
10? No.
Yeah.
Can you do Wednesday at 4? No.
Yeah.
I can only do it after 7. So I did start just living as if I was just a headshot photographer in terms of my networking and what I was putting out on LinkedIn and all that stuff.
So you assumed this new identity, even though you were still kind of, and I think again that's so crucial, because like if you're telling the world I'm not this thing and then expecting them to hire you or believe that you are, it's just not going to happen. Like you have to be there like 110% for them to even come like a little bit closer to you and say, oh, that's kind of interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah. So it was scary to be fired, but they did give me a warning. It was really strange. They said that if I didn't do a lot better in the next 30 days, that they would fire me. And then they hired someone who had done it successfully before, and I worked with her closely, and I learned a lot. I got in on the campaign, which is not usually a structured, like, there was no training.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay,
hit the ground
we
running.
need a press release on this. And I was like, okay, how do I write a press release? So I never really had someone who was amazing at it teach me, or even just as an example. So I felt like I learned a lot. I put in a lot of hours. I came in early. I went late. I started getting tools together that I should have had all along, but I didn't. And I was like, this I can work here until the plan was January 2020, because I am improving a lot, and I'm learning, and I've shown that I'm committed to working here longer.
Yeah.
And then one day they came, everybody was coming in because I was there before my boss. And, there was like, he was rushing around, and he closed his door to his office, and I was like, something's happening. And then
you could sense it.
Then the HR person called me in and said that they were letting me go. She said she disagreed with them. She fought for me, but
that's interesting.
that was it. So they paid me for the rest of the month, which was nice. It was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Could have been more, could have been nothing.
Sure.
So I was happy with that, but packed up my stuff and left, went home, told Katie, and sat down at my computer and started working on the website, I think.
So you knew, like, from that moment, it was just kind of like freedom.
I was thinking about it in the office. Like, she's like, John, we're going to have to let you go. And I was like,
hi, I'm a headshot photographer.
Yeah. I saw your LinkedIn, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely like, wow. And like, I want to make this a good thing. Like, I want to tell people I was fired.
Yeah.
And that's what led to whatever comes.
Yeah, no, I love the self-talk there, that it's like, it's potentially such a negative kind of experience, and you've already gone through quite a few at this point career-wise, but you're just like, nope, this is the kick in the ass I need to just like do the headshot thing full time.
I'd been wanting to, I wish I had quit. That would have been awesome. Like,
Sure.
I'm done.
Yeah.
But this was very helpful. Like, I was at that point disillusioned, didn't want to do politics anymore, and wanted to do the headshot thing. So it took the option away to just continue doing what I had been doing and keep working on the business. And I knew that if I had more time, I could do better at the business. Mm-hmm. If I didn't have just 2 or 3 hours in the evenings or Saturdays, I knew I could do better if I had availability when people wanted to shoot. I knew that I was good at it. I knew that I could charge enough to make it. DC's expensive, but I'm in DC and I'm charging for things. So,
Right. Works both ways.
It works. And so I went home and I worked. It was March 5th. And in March, I landed Deloitte as a client.
Wow.
Which was a nice little buffer to kind of, with the money coming in from the former employer and with this job, like, it gave me a little cushion.
3 weeks isn't a lot, but it's just enough that you could dedicate some time to like making that transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I had to be a little innovative. I contacted the CMO of Deloitte Risk on LinkedIn and told her what I did. Told her I wanted to work with Deloitte, and
so once again, that's that strategy that paid off for you before.
yeah,
I think maybe it's just me, but being kind of like a techie guy, I think we're so inclined to just like, do something online, create a website, whatever. If you build it, they will come, and just figure that like everyone in the world finds something by Googling for whatever they want. And we downplay the importance of that personal contact. So you showing up in Washington, you sending a letter to Peter Hurley or a thank you card, you reaching out directly to Deloitte. Was they like your ideal client at that time? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah. My headshots build trust and create connection, and consultant firms. I've now learned, and it made sense before, lawyers, consultants, financial people, wealth advisors, these sorts of people don't have anything but their knowledge and their skills in writing, arguing, advising.
You're buying their people, effectively.
They don't have anything except what they're going to tell you to do.
I'm buying the hamburger. At Deloitte, I'm buying this consultant.
Right.
And their process and their knowledge and their methodology.
So on these jobs, basically your perceived value is how much your people seem to be worth to the people buying it.
Right.
And in consultant firms, I've learned now, when they send a proposal to someone, it has like the 6 headshots of the people who are going to be working with you.
Interesting.
Right. They have thousands of consultants. You're getting these 6 people.
Right.
So I think headshots are super important. So I ended up, she finally accepted my request, did not respond to my note. So I followed up. I think I emailed her, because when you're connected, you have their email. So I think I emailed her, and maybe I even had to email her again. And she said, let me connect you with, or no, the chief of staff just reached out to me. Like, this person said you were contacting her and wanted to give her a free headshot. I offered to give her 1 free headshot, and I told her that the goal was for it to go well and for her to want to hire me.
You were upfront about that.
Yeah.
That just, I want to give you a headshot, but if you like it, then I want you to hire me to take headshots for your team.
Like, I want money at the end if it goes well.
Sure.
So the chief of staff and I set up a little time for me to come to the office, and she was late, and I spent 10 minutes with her. She liked the headshots. She liked the experience. And then I got a job to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, my first travel gig, to shoot 40-some people at their retreat as kind of their gift to the people.
Was still Deloitte?
Yeah.
Huh.
So instead of a bottle of wine or whatever, they gave them new headshots. I hired my first headshot photographer to do it with me, because we had a short time to do 40 people. And yeah, that was my first big job.
So you mentioned companies like Deloitte and other consulting companies, maybe accountants, but law firms, they all kind of have this need of communicating trust and just the idea that they're selling their people. They also have in common something else, that they're all rather like expensive services. These are companies that have money. Like you're fishing at the expensive end of the pond.
Sure.
Was that deliberate? Is that something that, like, did you learn that by experience? Were you trying to shoot headshots for homeless people and not making it, and then you're like, oh, I should go? Or like, how did you arrive there?
I evaluated the market, and I looked at what people were charging, and I was confident to charge maybe more than them. I think I might be the most expensive in DC.
Wow. I love that.
So I need people who have some money.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, sometimes people will try to help me. Like, have you thought about real estate agents?
Right.
Residential real estate agents, from what I've seen and from what a lot of my headshot photographer friends see, they're looking for like $60 headshots.
Yeah. And so as a marketer myself, like, there's so many lessons baked into what you're doing. It's just like, it's so interesting for me to unpack, because I think as a freelancer or as someone starting out, especially in a new career, the tendency is for people to go, quick and cheap and to play at that end, right? Like someone makes jewelry and sells it on Etsy or something like that. They're not selling, $10,000 fancy jewelry. They're selling like, oh, this is homemade, and it's just there tends to be like a correlation between someone freelancing and just thinking, I couldn't charge a lot for my product. Please somebody buy it from me. And you're taking the opposite approach and saying, I want to be the best at what I do. Who can afford the best? Let me sell it to those people.
Tiffany sells like $1,500 paper clips.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people with money.
Yeah.
DC has a lot of people with money. It's one of the richest areas in the country. So with the training I got, I felt comfortable being expensive.
And that's just something that like, it's so fascinating that you just sort of started that way. And that's what I recommend to people, is to be the best at something. And that's the other thing, is that you didn't say, I'm a photographer. You are, but you didn't just sort of lead with that. Because if you're a photographer, and you are, I can say, oh, that's interesting. Good to know.
My friend's a photographer.
Right. I'm a photographer. I like taking landscapes and travel pictures and stuff like that. I do it for fun. These days, iPhones, we're all sort of photographers.
Yeah.
Okay. But it doesn't really provoke a strong reaction in me.
Yep.
Right. Someone tells me they're a photographer. I think it's cool. I might talk to them about photos a little bit. I might ask what kind of camera they have or something. But you say you're a headshot photographer. Mm-hmm. So immediately that kind of like, okay, that's interesting. So you really specialize in this one particular type of picture.
Yep.
So like, just
more than that, I'm a facial expression coach.
Right. I'm going there. So mentally, I'm just kind of like, okay, so this is like the guy when it comes to headshots, because no one else I've ever met has told me they're a headshot photographer. And I'm not in that business. Maybe if I was an actor or something and like I'm meeting people who do stuff like this, I would hear more of that. Mm-hmm. But then beyond that, you're high-end headshots. Mm-hmm. Like you just put it right there in the name. Yeah, very intentional.
I could have said pricey headshots, but I thought that was a little too crass.
Pricey headshots would be awkward, but high-end headshots, it's the reason I love it is just that it's instantly polarizing. Not just love it or hate it, but like either you need that or you have no interest in it. Mm. But it's so tempting. And I've struggled with this myself for years. When you're starting out in business, you think kind of like, I'll take whatever comes in the door. Mm-hmm. This is the most common mentality. Like, whatever. I know how to make websites. So anyone who wants a website, I'll make a website for them. Oh, but I need something that's like not even a website. I need someone to set up my Facebook. Sure, I can do that too. And you just end up with this like very watered down, I do everything for everyone.
What about managing the social?
Right. Yeah. And it sounds... Intuitively, it sounds smart because it's like, well, you don't have any clients, so you better just take whatever you can get. Yep. But then it becomes impossible to build expertise and for anyone to refer to you. Mm-hmm. Like ever since we met, like Jon is high-end headshots. That's just like built in for me. Yep. And I know I'm not going to refer you to someone who's like wants a $20 headshot.
Or a wedding cover.
Or wedding photography or a landscape or a picture of their house or their dog or whatever. Yeah. So that's already there. And immediately my brain I can't help but start thinking about like, well, who might need a high-end headshot? I wonder who likes I wonder what the market is like for high-end. And it immediately made conversation. Yep. So like there's such a valuable lesson there. But you actually went one step further. You're a headshot photographer and...
facial expression coach.
What does that even mean?
I was hearing from my clients that what I was doing, which is based off of what Peter Hurley taught me, was much more structured and educational and guided than what they had before. I've heard from a lot of people that the typical headshot is the person, like the good headshot photographers or photographers who do headshots during the week. I feel like they think it's like they're ahead of the game because they know that they should try to make the person feel comfortable, like talk to them, make conversation, don't like stress them out. And that's good, but they still all resort to, okay, now smile. Right. Which, even if you're comfortable, is going to be a comfortable fake smile. Sure. And then what I've heard from many people is that they take 50 pictures, 100 pictures. They tell you to move your head that way or that way, move your shoulders this way or that way. And then you often pick from the back of the camera screen the one you dislike the least. Mm-hmm. And they look all the same because the person just said smile and nothing was happening in the session. Yeah. And they probably got worse because it gets weird after like a few pictures. Exactly. You're like, okay, I'm still just smiling. Like, right. Your cheeks are sore,
Yeah.
It's not good. So
And looking at the back of the camera, it's just like, I don't know, they all look horrible to me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you choose.
Yeah. So I realized that, well, I was focusing kind of on the look of the pictures. Like, aren't these beautiful? These are beautifully lit. Like, look at this person. They
The
look
technical aspects.
like they're lit from all around them, and then the lighting is coming from in front instead of one light source on the side creating shadows. Like, and then I realized from really my clients, like, actually, what sets me apart is that I'm working with these people. I'm teaching them stuff. I'm practicing stuff with them. I'm providing an environment where they have some genuine reactions to what I'm doing, which produces genuine smiles, interesting facial configurations that you couldn't ask for. And that's really what sets me apart more. I feel like as a photographer, I saw like, oh, the lighting's close and the fall off's good, but other people don't see that.
Yeah, no, we don't even know what that means.
But they can tell, like, it just looks fake, or
Sure.
like, wow, look at that. Look,
Yeah.
who is this person? So I decided to make that. I've emphasized it for a while, but now it's like the most important thing I talk to people about is that don't spend, even $100 on a shot where you're just going to be told to smile, and you won't be connecting with people. You won't be building trust. You'll know it's fake. Everyone knows it's fake. Don't like it's a bad investment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's not really worth $100. I don't think.
So, but you're focusing on the end result, right? So, like, taking the picture is just sort of the process of getting there, but really the person who's trying to communicate likability, trust, competence in the case of your clients, and you've got a process to get them there. And what you're effectively selling them is that end result that you'll get them there.
Right.
And throwing facial expression coach as part of that sets you apart from, it's, what is the buzzword, like blue ocean theory or whatever they call it, that it's just like everyone else is over here competing in this pool of photographers who charge this much for a wedding and this much for whatever, and you're here and saying, I'm high-end headshots, first of all, and then on top of that, I'm facial expression coaching. So the picture is just part of it, but I'm actually like making you look a certain way.
I think if I can be successful in making people see, like, oh, I won't, like, once you hear about facial expression coaching and understand what it is,
Yeah.
especially if you've had 10 headshots in your career so far, I think it should be easy for people to be like, well, I don't want to not have a facial expression coach.
Right.
It's
It's that like add-on service that you would never want to not have. It's like you're going to put your kids on some like roller coaster, and it's like, do you want the one with seatbelts? It's like, well, of course I'm going to pay for why would I not?
Right.
Like, how could I in good conscience?
So I'm hoping that it's sticky, like mentally, like once people hear about it, they won't want to go with that one.
As I said, like for me, since the first time we talked about it, it just like it really does just stick in my head as like, this is Jon, this is what he does. And even if like you initially have no need for the service, I swear you start in like with a really well-positioned service, you start inventing needs or thinking of people who could want that.
Yeah.
And that's something that, again, has taken me more than 10 years to learn, even as a marketing person, of just how important that kind of like positioning is, that someone positioned from the audience's perspective of like, I know exactly what I'm getting if I buy this thing.
Yep.
And that just totally transforms it from all these like slogans and whatever else.
Yeah.
Has the market reacted to that? Have you seen that when you tell people? What kind of reactions do you get?
People like it. Everybody likes it when I tell them, and then I find out whether they're actually really my client or not when I tell them the price.
Sure.
They're like, oh yeah, I've had multiple people like call me. I want a headshot. I'm like, okay, cool. What do you need it for? Oh, it's for work. I'm like, what's the budget? Oh, it doesn't matter. Work's paying for it. And then I tell them, and they're like, oh, well, I think that's too high. Or, it happens multiple times. A realtor actually called me. I met a realtor at a networking event, and he called me a couple weeks later, like, I want a headshot. And he was like, I was thinking about $60. I'm like, no,
I'll do your ear for $60.
Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, people love it. People love their pictures. I moved to a pricing structure that is just a session fee. You don't buy any images until you see them. and with limited use, that proves to be valued. And I think I try to make it simple. Like this is kind of the marketing business side, but I try to keep my pricing simple. Standard photographer will have 3 packages. One includes 1 image, 1 look. Middle package includes 2 looks and 3 images. Big, humongous package that saves you saves you a little money on the per image. You have to buy 6. You haven't seen any of the images yet.
Yeah.
Like, do I want to save money and maybe only have 4 that I really want?
Right.
Or do I want to go 1 and then not get the savings? I'm just like, everything's like rounded to the nearest 100.
Yeah.
You choose at the end of the session however many you want. You want 1, you can have 1. You want 7, you can have 7. 10.
Pricing confuses a lot of people. I think it's great to have packages if your packages are either like very clear in terms of like who it's for. Like if you're an individual, you probably want this. If you're a business with 5 people, you need this version. Like in that sense, packages are good. Or packages can be good for anchoring, where it's like, here's all the bells and whistles that maybe 1% of people need, and it costs like $1 million. And you see that and you're like, wow, these people sell stuff for $1 million. Or here's this one that has all the stuff that you need, and it's a lot cheaper. And you anchored them to the high price, so when they see the reasonable price. But that's, a lot of times it's not what you see. You just see packages that are very hard to distinguish.
Yeah.
And you make it harder for people to buy from you when you do that, because like they want to say yes, but now they don't know which one to say yes to.
It has like 8 bullet points, and you're like, well, what am I getting?
You need like an Excel sheet to calculate which one's a better value. Don't do that with your pricing. But for your ideal client, for a big law firm, for someone like a Deloitte or a consulting company, does price even matter? Does that come up?
It comes up. I think my ideal clients are not just big companies, but where the decision maker understands the value. Sometimes it's HR hiring, and I think that's probably not as advantageous. It is a marketing business development investment. It is not a photo badge investment.
Right. You're not a commodity service.
I've had friends tell me that their companies email them like, we need an email signature photo. I'm not gonna, get that job. And that's been helpful too, to just realize like, I'm not going after half the market.
Right.
I'm going after a small percentage of the market. So I'm conditioning myself mentally to get a lot of no's.
And that's so critical. You're conditioning yourself mentally to get a lot of no's.
I'm like, yep, I didn't get that one next.
Because you're sticking to the script and like your mission of like who you're trying to sell to. I think if more of us starting out, like especially as freelancers, again, just knew exactly who we're trying to sell to, what we're selling to them, and just focused on being the best at that, and saying no or being okay, being told no to like all these other opportunities that aren't a good fit, we would excel so much further in our careers. Yeah. Because I know it happened to me. You get distracted by all these little things come up along the way and they're not a good fit, but you say yes, either because you need the money or you just feel like, I would be ungrateful if I said no, or it's socially awkward. But then you deprive yourself of kind of like learning in a straight line and getting better at your craft, because you just keep learning. You make that website and then you make that Facebook page, and now you're kind of okay at making Facebook pages, and you know something about websites, but you're sort of falling behind because you haven't made any recently because you're so busy doing LinkedIn stuff or Salesforce or whatever.
For sure. Yeah. I think the combination between really specializing and I think I did a great job of, I feel like I was as expensive as I possibly could and still pay the bills. When I got a job, even an individual job, it's like, okay, that is like a step toward the month rent, the monthly expenses. So sticking pretty firm on price and being expensive so that when you do get a job, it's like something to celebrate.
And I think by charging enough, you're doing your customer a favor. First of all, they're going to take it seriously. We could do a whole episode on just the benefits of charging a lot, because then other people don't waste your time, right? When you're the expensive one in the room, they have everything ready to go ahead of time because they don't want to use your expensive time. But aside from that, it gives you the ability to knock it out of the park. Right? Like you'll spend that extra few minutes editing or touching up or whatever you do to make sure that it's like a 10 out of 10 and not a 7 out of 10 because I'm not really making enough money on this job, and like they've already asked for so many changes. Yeah. I think a lot of designers and developers stuff have gone through that, where we underprice something because we think they'll say no if we charge more. we get the job, and then you just sort of hate doing it once you get it, and you're just hoping that they're going to go away and never bother you again.
Yeah, I've had I would say really only one difficult client, an individual, and she thought she was getting all the pictures when she was getting none of the pictures. It was just a session fee. She admitted that she hadn't read carefully, and she should have, but that was the main problem. So I think you get better quality clients too.
Right.
In the same week, I was doing an organization paid me to come in and take headshots of college students. The college students had to do a $10 ticket to get the headshots. And in the same week, I had one of them, email me and ask me to basically justify the $10 because he could take a selfie. So why would he spend $10 on a headshot? In the same week, I had the communications director of SpaceX book my middle package, pay in full, which he didn't have to, tip me before he came into the studio. And he's not the most strikingly handsome guy. He could have easily been like, oh, I don't look, great. But he was comfortable with himself, and he like, that's a good picture of me. He's like, I still need to keep, losing some weight, but that's great. He tipped me before he came in. I've never had that happen before. And it's just like, that's the extremes, obviously.
Right.
But some people don't think it's worth $10, and some people want to tip you before they get anything for it.
Yeah, it's amazing how subjective all that can be.
I want to work for the latter.
Absolutely, and you should. And when you do those jobs where you are getting paid handsomely and you do that 10 out of 10 work, of course, then what happens? They're more likely to come back to you for more in future. Yep. They're more likely to refer you to somebody else. So you're just raise your prices, people.
Yes, I'm with that.
Raise prices.
I did a job yesterday. You also build the client base so that the returning clients are also good paying. If you charge $100 for a headshot for 2 years until you feel comfortable tripling your prices, you're going to have a whole bunch of past clients who paid $100, and they're not going to pay $300.
Right, you've anchored them to you being cheap
from the beginning. Yep. I just had a job yesterday from a returning corporate client. They just called me up, like, we want you to come in again and do some more people, 37 people. And I made, it was a very good day for me. And I didn't have to go get them. And I did raise my prices slightly. I gave them what they had last time. Everybody was happy.
And you could afford to do that still.
Yeah, and there are more people at the company who are like begging, is what I was told. They're begging for a slot if you have one open. And so I figure I'll be going back again.
Amazing.
But I have a good client, so it pays off when they're just like, we need more headshots. Well, John did a great job last time. Just call me up and we figure out a day, and that's it. I don't have to go find new clients for those people.
That's a pretty good place to leave it. But before we wrap up, I want to ask you for some tips for all those people who don't have the money or the privilege necessarily of being able to hire you. What are some basic, simple things that we as the subject of a picture can do just to look better in a photograph?
Posture is important.
All right.
I think people think that because a headshot like I take them is just shoulders up, that posture doesn't matter. But you can tell whether someone's shoulders are slumped or whether they're back. So that's helpful. I tell people to imagine there's a hook in the top of their heads, pulling them up to the ceiling. This elevates them only a little bit, but it's stretching the neck up, which stretches the skin and wraps around the jawline.
Yeah, can I clear some of this double chin nonsense in
here?
here?
I know. I'm 31 now, so I discovered yesterday, I was like, I can do a really good demonstration of like what goes wrong when you don't
I hide mine under a lot of hair.
Yeah, that's helpful. And then, so that gets you like this much height. But then the big move is stretching your neck out abnormally far towards the camera.
This is the Peter Hurley signature here.
The plane of your face goes towards the camera.
Yeah. This is the Peter Hurley, like down and forward.
Yep. So that's very helpful for jawline. When you smile, your eyes are engaged. So I teach people to squinch if you want to. I facial expression coached a lawyer who met me at a networking event and was having their headshot photographer come in the next Monday. And she said it was super helpful. So
So
even
you
by
actually
text,
coached but didn't take the pictures.
right. And she said the only reason she didn't really hate her pictures was because of what I told her. And that was in an email copying the person who was in charge of hiring next
I thought you were
time.
going to say the photographer. That would have been awkward.
No. So your eyes are engaged. Your bottom lids go up. So you can find a helpful video on the squinch online and practice that if you're going to someone who isn't a facial expression coach.
Is that the Peter Hurley one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was my only kind of introduction. Long before you and I met, like, I'm not in the business of taking a lot of headshots at that time, but somehow I just I came across Peter Hurley on YouTube, and he just had this fantastic kind of playful, fun explanation of a lot of concepts. But I remember what stuck out to me to this day is that kind of jaw sort of head forward and down, so just to create some shadow between your jawline and your neck, just to give a little depth so you don't just melt into this ugly neck chinless kind of blob.
Yep.
And the squinch, which is hard to explain, but it's
raising your bottom
eyes.
eyelids, right?
Yeah.
It's when you really smile, your eyes are engaged in this squinch, and you never do it consciously, but you can do it consciously. Most people can do it consciously. So I recommend look up the video on the squinch and then do a hint of a smile, closed lips.
Hint of a smile, closed lips.
Yeah. It's much easier to fake a small smile well than a big smile. No, like very few people can make a big fake smile look real.
Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. I think we leave it there. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Neville.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been fun.
All right.